Have you ever been treated like you were nothing more than a burden? Like the very people who were supposed to protect you only saw you as trash? What if I told you that sometimes the ones the world steps on rise higher than anyone could ever imagine? And when they return, they don't come back begging, they come back powerful enough to make the very people who broke them bow down in silence. Sophia was only 18, but her life had never really felt like her own. From as early as she could remember, her hands were always busy, scrubbing floors that never seemed clean enough, washing dishes stacked higher than her tiny frame, cooking meals she barely got to taste. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. In her parents' home, she wasn't the daughter. She was their maid. Her parents weren't cruel in the way strangers might notice. No, they were experts at quiet humiliation. The kind that didn't leave bruises but carved deep wounds in the heart. "Look at Mr. Ahmed's daughter," her mother would sigh, her eyes heavy with disappointment. "She's already winning awards at school. And you can't even fold the laundry right." Her father would join in, never missing a chance to remind Sophia that she was lucky they hadn't thrown her out already. Sophia learned young that love in her house was conditional, and she never met the conditions. She wasn't the top student, the golden child, the pride of the family. She was, in their words, extra weight. A burden, a mistake they couldn't afford but were stuck with. What made it worse was their obsession. Her parents didn't dream of vacations, hobbies, or even family happiness. No, they had one burning desire: to impress the rich. Particularly one man, Mr. Donovan, a billionaire businessman whose face was on every magazine and whose words were quoted like scripture in her household. To her parents, Donovan was proof that money was everything, status was everything, and people like them were nothing unless they were seen by someone like him. Sophia grew up listening to her parents gush about him like he was royalty. They'd cut out articles about his company, memorize his speeches, and talk for hours about how one day, somehow, they'd get close to him. The irony: they never noticed that the girl cleaning the dishes at midnight was building something bigger than they could even dream of. Sophia's nights belonged to her. After a day of being ordered around like a servant, she'd retreat quietly to her tiny room, the one place in the house where she could breathe. And there, while her parents slept, she opened her old laptop, cracked screen, missing keys, and worked. At first, it was just curiosity. A love for solving problems, building little projects online. But slowly, piece by piece, it grew into something else. A business idea, a vision, a company. Her parents never noticed the quiet glow of the screen under her door at 2 a.m. They never saw the notebooks filled with plans, or the emails she nervously sent to investors, or the small team she built online, people who believed in her even when her own family didn't. They didn't notice, because to them, she was just the maid. Why would a maid have dreams? But dreams don't need permission. And Sophia's dream was becoming real. Still, her parents' words cut deep. Every insult, every comparison, every order to stay out of sight when guests come, it all piled up inside her, until her heart was heavy with the weight of rejection. She told herself she didn't care. But deep down, she did. Deep down, she wanted to stand tall just once, to prove she was more than the trash they treated her as. That chance would come, and it would arrive in the most dramatic way imaginable. Because after years of humiliating her, after years of worshipping Donovan like a god, her parents finally got what they always wanted: a visit. The billionaire himself was coming to their home. And Sophia, they ordered her to hide. To serve drinks, stay quiet, and never, under any circumstances, embarrass them in front of their idol. They had no idea the man they worshipped already knew her name. And when he walked through that door, their lives would never be the same. The day the news arrived, Sophia could almost feel the walls of her home shake with her parents' excitement. Her mother burst into her room without knocking, her face flushed with joy that looked almost feverish. "Sophia, Donovan is coming here, to our house." She clasped her hands like a girl who had just been promised a fairy tale. "Do you realize what this means?" Sophia barely looked up from her desk. Of course, she knew exactly what it meant. She had read the email too, not the one her parents got, but the one sent to her, signed personally by Donovan's assistant. But she stayed quiet, her lips pressed into a thin line. Because in her parents' world, she was invisible. Her father paced the living room like a man preparing for battle. This is it. This is the moment that will change everything. If Donovan sees us as friends, we'll finally climb out of this pit. People will respect us. His eyes gleamed with a hunger Sophia knew all too well. Respect to him wasn't earned through kindness, or dignity, or integrity. It was measured in bank accounts, cars, and the nods of rich men. Then came the inevitable words, sharp as knives, delivered with the casual cruelty Sophia had learned to expect. Sophia, you will not ruin this. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will serve drinks, clear plates, and stay in the kitchen the rest of the time. Do you understand? Her mother added, we can't afford to embarrass ourselves with your lack of achievements. This is grown-up business. Sophia lowered her eyes. Her chest tightened, anger simmering quietly beneath her skin. She wanted to scream, to throw every secret success she had in their faces. But she didn't. Not yet. Timing was everything. The week leading up to the visit felt like a storm gathering force. Her parents turned the house upside down, scrubbing every corner, polishing furniture until it shone. They argued over which curtains looked more expensive, which plates were Donovan-worthy. Every meal became a rehearsal for perfection, every word rehearsed as if they were actors in a play. And Sophia, she carried the weight, cleaning until her hands were raw, running errands until her legs trembled. They worked her like a servant, barking orders, criticizing every move. Yet every night, when exhaustion should have drowned her, she opened her laptop again. And there, in the quiet hum of her room, she reminded herself, they don't see me. But he does. Because Donovan wasn't just a name to her. He wasn't just her parents' obsession. Months ago, he had become her investor. Secretly, quietly, he had noticed her. One email turned into a meeting, one meeting into support, and support into partnership. He didn't care that she was just a girl from a house that treated her like dirt. He cared about her vision, her drive, the empire she was building piece by piece. Sophia could still remember his words from their first conversation. Don't tell anyone until the time is right. Let your success speak for you. And tonight, success was ready to roar. The morning of the visit arrived with an almost unnatural stillness. Sophia's parents, dressed in their best clothes, rehearsed the greetings in the mirror, and scolded her for wrinkles in the tablecloth she had ironed twice already. By afternoon, tension filled the air like electricity before a lightning strike. Sophia's heart pounded as she set out the glasses, her hands steady even though inside she was trembling with anticipation. Her father stopped her at the doorway. Remember, you are nothing tonight. Do as you're told, or I swear. His voice dropped into that tone she knew too well, the one that carried years of belittlement. Sophia met his eyes for the briefest moment. For once, she didn't look away. Her silence was calm, almost defiant, and though he didn't understand it, she felt the power shift quietly inside her. Then the sound came. Tires on gravel, a black car pulling into the driveway. Her parents scrambled like desperate hosts, fixing their clothes, practicing their smiles one last time. This is it, her mother whispered, her voice trembling with greed and awe. He's here. Sophia stood back, her heart steady now. Because unlike them, she wasn't waiting for Donovan to notice her. He already had. The doorbell rang. The air in the room froze. And as her father rushed forward to open the door, Sophia's world, and theirs, was about to change forever. The door swung open, and there he was. Mr. Donovan, the man who had been the centerpiece of every dinner conversation, every daydream, every desperate hope Sophia's parents ever had. Tall, commanding, with an aura that seemed to draw silence out of the air itself. Even in a simple charcoal suit, he radiated the kind of authority that made people straighten their backs without thinking. Her parents nearly fell over themselves in the greeting. Mr. Donovan, her father exclaimed, his voice trembling between awe and desperation. What an honor! What a true honor to have you in our home. He extended both hands, bowing slightly, while her mother rushed forward with the brightest, most artificial smile Sophia had ever seen. Donovan accepted the greeting with polite nods, his eyes scanning the room with calm detachment. Sophia noticed the flicker of curiosity in his gaze as it swept past the gleaming furniture, the too perfect table setting, the nervous excitement practically dripping off her parents' faces. And then, his eyes found her. For a second, something shifted. His expression softened almost imperceptibly, a glimmer of recognition crossing his features. But just as quickly, he masked it, giving nothing away. Her mother noticed his glance and moved swiftly to block it. "Ah, please, don't mind her. That's just Sophia," she said with a dismissive laugh. "She'll take care of drinks and stay out of the way. She's not really important." Sophia's chest tightened, but she kept her face blank, calm, unreadable. If her parents thought she'd break tonight, they were wrong. Tonight, she wasn't the one hiding. Donovan's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer before he turned back to her parents. "I see." His voice was steady, neutral. But Sophia caught it, that subtle edge. A man like him didn't forget. Her father, oblivious, gestured grandly toward the dining room. "Please, sir, right this way. We've prepared everything, only the finest, for someone of your stature." As they sat, her parents fawned over him like servants desperate for approval. Every word Donovan spoke, they treated like a commandment. Her mother laughed too loudly at his mildest jokes, while her father kept slipping in clumsy compliments about his empire, his wisdom, his legacy. All the while, Sophia moved silently in the background, pouring water, placing plates, her presence dismissed as though she were invisible. But Donovan's eyes followed her. Not openly, not enough for her parents to notice, but enough for her to feel it. Each time she passed, she felt his gaze linger like a reminder, "Hold steady. The moment is coming." Then it happened. Her father leaned forward, his voice dropping to a rehearsed seriousness. "Mr. Donovan, we've admired you for so long. People like us, we don't get opportunities often. But tonight, we feel connected. Perhaps, with your guidance, we could find a way into the business world too. You know, rise a little higher." Her mother chimed in eagerly. Yes. We are loyal, hard-working people. And we've taught our daughter the same values. Though she hasn't quite turned out the way we hoped." She shot Sophia a cold glance, as though her existence was an embarrassment. "But with your blessing, maybe she can find a decent job. Something simple, something suitable for her. Limitations." The words sliced through the room like a blade. Sophia froze mid-step, her hands tightening around the tray she carried. But before she could react, Donovan's voice cut in, calm, measured, yet carrying a weight that made the air itself heavy. "Limitations," he repeated softly, his eyes narrowing just slightly. Her father rushed to laugh it off. "Ah, you know how children are. Some bloom, some don't. She's always been more of a helper than anything else. But we don't mind. Every family has its weak link." Sophia stood still, her heart hammering. A storm was brewing, silent but undeniable. She could feel Donovan's gaze burning into her parents, into her, into the lies that had shackled her for years. Then, slowly, Donovan placed his glass down on the table. The sound was quiet, but it rang out like thunder. He leaned back, his eyes locking onto Sophia's parents with a sharpness that made them shift uncomfortably in their seats. "You're mistaken," he said simply. Her parents blinked, confused. "Am mistaken?" her mother stammered. Donovan didn't look at them. He turned his head, deliberately, until his gaze met Sophia's. This time, he didn't hide it. This time, his respect, his recognition, his quiet pride shone clear for everyone to see. And then, with a calm voice that carried the weight of revelation, he said, "She is not your burden. She is not your maid. She is the reason I am here tonight." The room went silent. Her parents froze, their practiced smiles crumbling into raw disbelief. Sophia's breath caught in her chest. The storm had finally broken. And it was only the beginning. Her father's fork slipped from his hand, clattering onto the plate with a sharp metallic ring that cut through the silence. Her mother's painted smile trembled at the edges, as if her face could no longer hold it in place. Donovan's words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. What do you mean?" Her father finally managed, his voice cracking under the weight of confusion. "Surely you're mistaken, sir. She's just Sophia. Our daughter. She doesn't. Your daughter, Donovan interrupted, his gaze sharp enough to slice through steel. The one you dismiss, the one you hide, the one you claim is your weak link, is the very foundation of an empire you don't even know exists. Her mother's hands shook as she tried to laugh, the sound brittle and false. You can't be serious. She can't even fold clothes properly. How could she? Donovan leaned forward, his eyes burning into them. Because while you reduced her to a servant in her own home, she was building a future that no one could steal from her. I've seen her work. I've invested in her vision. And I assure you, her name carries more weight in boardrooms than yours ever will in this neighborhood. The air grew heavier with every word. Sophia stood frozen, her tray still in her hands, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She wanted to move, to speak, but something stronger held her still, the moment itself, too powerful, too unreal. Her father sputtered, sweat gathering on his forehead. But, Mr. Donovan, surely you don't mean that she... Donovan cut him off with a calm that was more devastating than anger. I don't just mean it. I live it. Every day, I answer to her decisions. I respect her leadership. She is not my employee, not my subordinate. She is my partner, my boss. The word slammed into the room like a hammer. Boss. Her parents' faces drained of color. Her mother clutched the edge of the table as though the ground itself had given way beneath her. Her father's mouth opened and closed, but no words came. And then Donovan did something that shattered them completely. He rose from his seat. The billionaire they worshipped, the man they dreamed of impressing, the symbol of power they thought would validate their existence. He stood up, walked past them, and stopped in front of Sophia. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then, with a simple, deliberate motion, Donovan bowed his head ever so slightly in respect. Sophia, he said softly, but loud enough for her parents to hear every syllable. It is an honor to work alongside you. Her tray slipped from her trembling hands and landed on the table with a dull thud. Tears pricked her eyes, not of weakness, but of release. Years of humiliation, years of silence, breaking at last. Her parents stared at her as though they were seeing her for the first time. And in truth, they were. Not the maid, not the burden, but the woman who had outgrown the chains they tried to bind her with. Sophia drew a breath, steady and calm. For the first time in her life, she looked them directly in the eyes without fear. All my life, she began, her voice quiet but sharp as glass, you treated me like trash. Like I was less than nothing. But the trash you threw away became the treasure the world now admires. Her words struck harder than any scream ever could. Her mother's lips parted in shock, her father recoiled as though slapped. Donovan stepped back, giving Sophia the space she didn't even know she had been craving. The floor was hers now, and her parents knew it. Sophia's voice grew steadier, stronger, fueled by the fire of everything she had endured. You broke me. Over and over again, you tried to make me believe I was worthless. But every scar you gave me became my strength. And tonight, you don't just see the daughter you despised. You see the woman who no longer needs you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Her parents stood small, fragile, diminished in a way they had never been before. For years, they had towered over her with their words, their cruelty, their control. Now, in a single evening, the power had shifted forever. Donovan spoke once more, his voice low but final. Remember this moment, because the person you underestimated will never bow to you again. Her parents lowered their eyes. They couldn't bear to look at her. And Sophia, she stood tall, her head high, her spirit unbroken, finally free. But she wasn't finished yet. The room was so quiet that even the tick of the clock on the wall sounded deafening. Her parents, once so loud, so demanding, so full of orders, now stood frozen, small shadows in the corner of a house they no longer controlled. Sophia inhaled slowly, the weight of years lifting from her chest. She didn't need to scream, didn't need to throw her success in their faces. Her calmness was its own kind of vengeance. Her mother finally found her voice, thin and trembling. Sophia, we didn't know. We only wanted the best for you. You must understand, Sophia's eyes narrowed. The best for me, or the best for yourselves? The question struck like lightning. Her mother stammered, unable to answer. Her father stepped forward, his voice desperate now. Sophia, listen to me. This is good news. Great news. We can still be a family. Imagine what people will say when they find out you are connected to Donovan. To think, our daughter. Stop. The word was soft, but it silenced him instantly. Sophia's gaze was steady, unshakable. You don't get to use me now. Not after the years you spent breaking me down. Not after treating me like I didn't matter. Family isn't something you claim when it's convenient. Family is what you prove in the darkest moments. And you proved I was nothing to you. Her father's shoulders sagged. For the first time in her life, she saw defeat in his eyes. Sophia turned toward Donovan, who remained silent, watching her with quiet respect. He had given her the stage, but what came next had to be hers alone. She faced her parents again. You wanted to impress a billionaire. You wanted power, respect, a place among the wealthy. Tonight, you got all of that, but not the way you imagined. Because the man you worship bows his head to the daughter you despised. Her mother covered her mouth, tears welling up, but Sophia didn't soften. And here's the truth, Sophia continued, her voice breaking slightly but steady with conviction. I could destroy you. I could leave you with nothing but shame. But I won't. Because revenge isn't about making you suffer. It's about proving that your cruelty didn't define me. I am more than what you tried to make me. She stepped closer, her presence towering even though she barely raised her voice. You broke me, but I rebuilt myself stronger. Remember this. Never underestimate the one you call worthless. Her parents stood in silence, their heads lowered. The power they once held over her was gone, shattered beyond repair. Donovan moved beside her, his expression calm but proud. Shall we? He asked gently. Sophia nodded. She turned her back on her parents, not with anger, not with hatred, but with dignity. Every step she took toward the door echoed louder than any words could. By the time she reached it, the house felt different. Smaller, emptier. At the doorway, she paused. Without turning back, she spoke one last time. You'll remember this night for the rest of your lives. Not because Donovan came here. Not because of wealth or status. But because the daughter you treated like trash walked out as a queen. And with that, she left. Her parents remained behind, swallowed by silence, their dreams crumbled into dust. Sophia stepped into the night, the cool air filling her lungs like freedom. She didn't need their approval. She didn't need their love. She had something greater, herself, her strength, her empire. And a world waiting to hear her story. Because Sophia was no longer the maid in her parents' home. She was the woman who proved that even in the darkest soil, a diamond can grow. And nothing, not even the people who raised her, could take that away. The night swallowed Sophia in silence as the door closed behind her. For the first time, the world outside felt wider than the cage she had lived in for 18 years. The stars above glittered like fragments of the life she had built, one she had forged with nothing but grit, sacrifice, and the refusal to stay broken. Donovan walked beside her, quiet, offering nothing but presence. He didn't need to say a word. He had already given her what no one else ever had, belief. The rest was all her. As they reached the sleek black car, Sophia paused. Her reflection stared back at her in the tinted glass. The girl she once was, exhausted, beaten down, invisible, was gone. The woman who stared back at her now radiated something different. Strength, freedom, power. She whispered to herself, almost like a vow, I'll never be invisible again. The city lights greeted her like an army of witnesses as the car pulled away. And with each passing street, her mind raced forward, to boardrooms where her voice commanded respect, to stages where her story would inspire millions, to young girls sitting in dark rooms feeling worthless, who would hear her words one day and realize they too could rise. Her past hadn't vanished. The scars would always be there. But scars weren't signs of weakness. They were proof of survival. Proof of transformation. Back in that house, her parents would replay every second of the evening over and over. They would remember Donovan's bow. Her words. Their silence. The humiliation that stripped away every ounce of false pride they had ever clung to. That would be their punishment, living with the knowledge that the daughter they had crushed was the same daughter the world now admired. And Sophia, she wasn't walking away to punish them. She was walking towards something greater. A life where her worth was never up for debate. A legacy built not on her parents' approval, but on her own unshakable will. Months later, headlines would flood the news. Youngest CEO partners with Donovan in groundbreaking expansion. Interviews would feature her face, calm, confident, unstoppable. When asked about her past, she never spoke names, never exposed her parents directly. She didn't need to. The message was bigger than that. All my life, she told reporters once, her voice steady, I was told I wasn't enough. But here's the truth. Your value doesn't depend on who believes in you. It depends on who you choose to become when no one else sees your worth. Don't wait for permission to shine. Shine anyway. Those words rippled through millions of screens, reaching people who felt small, broken, invisible. And in him, they found their spark. Sophia's story wasn't just her revenge. It became a revolution. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't destroying the ones who hurt you. It's showing the world, and yourself, that they never had the power to define you. And as her empire grew, as more people looked to her for hope, Sophia carried one truth close to her heart. They called me worthless. But worthless is what they became, the moment I realized I was priceless. Her parents remained shadows of her past, forever haunted by the night their idol bowed to the child they threw away. But Sophia, she stepped into the light. And she never looked back. Months turned into a year, and Sophia's empire expanded like wildfire. Donovan wasn't just her partner, he became her fiercest advocate in the corporate battlefield. Together, they launched initiatives that didn't just build wealth, they built futures. Sophia started with one goal, to create a company that gave chances to people who were overlooked, just like she once was. Her hiring policies favored underprivileged youth, single mothers, immigrants, and anyone who had been told, "You're not enough." For Sophia, every contract signed, every business won, wasn't just profit, it was proof. Proof that no one's worth should ever be measured by status, wealth, or a last name. Her story caught fire across social media. Clips of her speeches went viral. They told me I was nothing. But here's the secret. No one gets to define your worth but you. Young people quoted her. Journalists called her the Phoenix CEO. Celebrities praised her resilience. But Sophia never let it blind her. She remembered the basement, the nights crying into silence, the bruises no one cared to see. That pain became her compass. Meanwhile, her parents were sinking. The more Sophia rose, the more whispers followed them in social circles. People who once respected them as strict but successful began to smirk behind their backs. At charity dinners, whispers circulated. Did you know? That's the girl they disowned. And now, she's wealthier than both of them combined. Her mother drowned herself in gossip, desperate to rewrite the story. Her father drank more, bitter, replaying the humiliation of that night like a wound that never healed. But Sophia never reached out. Not once. And that silence ate them alive. Because true revenge isn't screaming in someone's face, it's becoming so untouchable that your absence is louder than your presence ever was. One evening, Sophia was invited to a global leadership summit. Donovan introduced her on stage before thousands. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "the person standing before you proves that resilience is stronger than privilege, and courage is greater than cruelty. Please welcome, Sophia Hart." The crowd roared as she walked up, dressed in pure white, like a symbol of renewal. She stood tall, scanning the faces before her. Cameras flashed. The world was listening. Her speech was short but unforgettable. "Pain built me. But pain didn't break me. Every door slammed in my face, every voice that told me I was worthless. All it did was light a fire." So to anyone listening who feels small, who feels invisible, don't give up. Your story isn't over, and one day, the very people who doubted you will have no choice but to watch you rise. The audience erupted. Hashtags exploded online. That night, Sophia didn't just walk off the stage, she walked into history. Her parents watched the broadcast from their dim living room. Her mother's hands trembled as she muted the TV. Her father's jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might break. The truth was undeniable now. The daughter they had crushed was not only alive, not only thriving, she was rewriting the definition of power. Sophia didn't know, or maybe she did, deep down, that this was the final nail in their coffin. Because the night she claimed her voice before the world was the night her parents lost theirs forever. Her parents couldn't escape it anymore. Everywhere they went, Sophia's face was there, on the cover of Forbes, on the news, on social media. Even in their small circle of so-called friends, she was the topic of every conversation. But no one praised them anymore. Her mother had once lived for those brunch tables filled with whispers of status. Who wore what, who bought what, who knew who. Now, those same tables had gone silent whenever she walked in. Smiles grew polite, too polite, and eyes darted away, hiding smirks. Her father tried to salvage respect through business deals, but doors closed on him. Younger entrepreneurs laughed quietly after he left the room. He had been reduced to nothing more than Sophia's father, a title that burned his pride like acid. At night, arguments filled their home. "Why don't you call her?" Her mother snapped one evening. "You think she'd answer after everything?" Her father barked back. "You're her father." "No, we lost that right the moment we threw her away." For once, the truth slipped through. And the silence that followed was worse than any scream. Meanwhile, Sophia's empire had reached unimaginable heights. Donovan often teased her. "You know, if you wanted, you could buy the very street your parents live on. Own every inch of their world." Sophia smiled faintly but shook her head. "No need. Their prison isn't made of walls. It's made of regret." And she was right. One rainy evening, fate brought them face to face again. Sophia was leaving a charity gala, one that raised funds for abused and abandoned children. As her sleek car pulled up, she noticed two figures by the entrance. Her parents. Time hadn't been kind. Her mother looked frail, makeup smeared by tears. Her father's shoulders were bent, no trace of the proud, commanding man he once was. They didn't look like parents, they looked like ghosts. They stepped forward hesitantly. "Sophia," her mother whispered, voice trembling. Her father tried to speak, but words caught in his throat. For a long moment, Sophia said nothing. The flashes of cameras around her, the security guards waiting, the reporters whispering, it all faded. All she saw were the two people who once told her she was nothing. And now, they were nothing themselves. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm, steady, sharp enough to cut through the storm. "You only see me now because the world does. But where were you when I was invisible? When I cried myself to sleep? When you treated me like I wasn't your daughter, but your servant?" Her mother's knees buckled. Her father tried to reach for her hand. We made mistakes. We didn't know." Sophia pulled her hand back, her eyes unyielding. "No, you knew. You just didn't care. And now you want forgiveness. Not because you love me, but because you need me." The silence was suffocating. Reporters leaned forward, capturing every second. Sophia turned to leave, but before stepping into her car, she looked back one last time. Her final words weren't cruel, they were powerful. "I don't hate you. Hate would mean you still matter. You're just lessons I survived." She entered her car. The doors shut, cameras flashed, and just like that, she was gone. Her parents stood in the rain, broken. No wealth, no pride, no legacy. All they had left was the echo of the daughter's voice, and the knowledge that the empire they once mocked her for dreaming of was now untouchable. And Sophia, she didn't cry, she didn't look back. She didn't need revenge anymore, because the sweetest revenge had already happened. She lived, she thrived, she conquered. Years passed, and Sophia's name became more than a company logo. It became a movement. Schools carried her scholarships. Hospitals bore her foundation's name. Entire communities thrived because of the opportunities she built. The world didn't just know her as a successful entrepreneur. They knew her as the girl who rose from the ashes of cruelty and turned pain into power. One evening, Sophia returned to her old neighborhood. Not as the girl carrying trash bags out of her parents' house, but as the woman stepping out of a black car, greeted by cheering children holding signs. "Thank you, Sophia." She had bought the very building where her family once lived, not to evict them, not to burn it down, but to rebuild it into a community center for forgotten kids. The ones who, like her, were told they didn't matter. As she stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Donovan whispered with a grin, "This is bigger than revenge. This is rewriting the story." Sophia took the microphone. Cameras flashed. The world listened. Her voice carried strength but also warmth. "When I was young, I thought love meant obedience. I thought worth meant pleasing people who never saw me. But I was wrong. Worth isn't given to you. It's built inside you. And no matter how many times someone tries to crush you, you can rise." Her eyes scanned the crowd, the laughter of children, the hopeful faces of teenagers, the tears of struggling parents who saw a chance for their kids. This building isn't just bricks and walls. It's proof. Proof that pain can become power, and that those who were once underestimated can become unstoppable. If anyone here has ever been called worthless, let this place remind you, you are not trash. You are treasure. The audience erupted in applause. Somewhere far back in the shadows, Sophia's parents stood among the crowd, older now, quieter, swallowed by the life they had chosen. They didn't approach her this time. They couldn't. They simply watched as their daughter, the girl they had rejected, became everything they had once worshipped in others. And as tears welled in her mother's eyes, as regret weighed down her father's shoulders, Sophia stood tall at the podium, radiant, untouchable. She didn't need to acknowledge them. She didn't need to forgive or condemn. Their punishment was eternal. To live the rest of their days knowing the daughter they cast aside became the queen of everything they dreamed of. Sophia smiled as the crowd chanted her name, the sound rising like a storm. She had found her victory, her peace, her purpose. Her story was no longer about pain. It was about power, not revenge, but rebirth. And as she raised the scissors to cut the ribbon, her voice echoed one last time, leaving the world with a truth no one would ever forget. "They broke me. But I rebuilt myself stronger. And so can you." The ribbon fell. The building opened. The world applauded. And Sophia walked forward, not as a survivor, not as a victim, but as a legend.